Hey y'all, Merry post Christmas, Happy pre New Year. I want to talk about the movie that I saw a couple of days ago. Actually, I saw it on Christmas Day, the day of its release, and that is the new Bob Dylan biopic, A Complete Unknown. But before I talk about that movie, let me talk a little bit about my acquaintance with Dylan, as it were, my acquaintance with Dylan as a figure, as an artist, as a phenomenon, what have you. I came rather late in life to Bob Dylan fandom. I did not pay much attention to him in my adolescence or young adulthood or even not so young adulthood. It's only in the last few years that I started to realize that this guy, is a special kind of celebrity. Now, I'm very like most of you. I no doubt. I am very cynical about celebrity. I tend to think that most people who become celebrities don't become celebrities for good reasons. I'll just leave it at that. I mean, it's an interesting question. Who makes the stars? What does a person have to do to become a star? And there are plenty of quote unquote conspiracy theories that are probably largely true about the whole notion of fame and all that. And I don't know for sure what's true and what isn't, but I'm cynical about celebrity in general, and the idea of celebrity worship, and the idea that somebody is somehow to be seen as more important than the rest of us because he or she is in the public eye, and so forth. That said, I will admit that if I run across somebody, if I happen to see somebody or meet somebody for whatever reason, like I remember when I was younger, my father and I were in the Atlanta airport, and my dad said, "Hey, look, Stevie Wonder," and sure enough, there was a blind man who looked like Stevie Wonder, being led by a couple of handlers. They were walking very rapidly through the Atlanta airport, and it was like, wow, that's Stevie Wonder. And other times in my life, where I've seen where I've seen somebody who is a celebrity. I'm not going to lie. If I see somebody who's famous, it'll be I'll notice it. I'll tell people about it, but it will be something that I'll that part of all of us that gets starstruck. I think no matter how jaded we and cynical we are, or pretend to be, there's still that part of us, and I think I admit to that being a part of me. So if I see somebody who's famous, I'll probably feel I'll probably think to myself, wow, that's person X, whether or not I like person X. Just the fact that person is famous, and that I saw that person in the flesh, that'll have an effect on me. So it's not that I'm immune to the allure of celebrity. But Dylan, I think, is uh, a rare celebrity in that he's somebody who transcends celebrity. Um, when I saw him interviewed on the this documentary that or in this documentary that was made a few years ago, directed by Martin Scorsese, I believe, and it featured heavily uh, Bob Dylan being interviewed, being asked questions and responding to questions. I found the guy just hypnotic. He's somebody who's not very physically prepossessing. He's not handsome, never been handsome. He is, sort of a slight, schlumpy kind of guy. Um, there's nothing about him that really stands out physically, uh, but yet there's something in the way that he communicates things, in the things that he reveals, the things that he declines to reveal. The way he kind of ducks and parries, and effortlessly, when answering questions, um, and with regard to himself and with regard to the world around him. Uh, he is a fascinating person, and that's just a part. That's the man apart from his music. Now his music is definitely an acquired taste, and I called myself a fan. But I'm still sort of in the process of acquiring the appreciation of Bob Dylan's music. It's not something that I easily gravitate towards. It's not typical when it comes to my taste, the taste that I have cultivated, or that has been cultivated, in some subconscious way, or largely subconscious way, through my life. The kind of music that I tend to like. But yet there is something about the man, and something about the enigma of him. And well, I talked in a video. This was actually a little while ago, but I remembered I remembered seeing a book in on the shelf of Barnes and Ignoble, as I call them. And this was maybe 3 years ago or so, and it was a picture. It was Bruce Springsteen and Barack Obama standing together, being all buddy buddy, having a laugh, and the title of the book was Renegades. Um, and I thought to myself, oh my God, like, God, and Springsteen is somebody who is similar to Dylan in that he has this mystique. He's been around for forever. He's a unique songwriter. Uh, he's seen as somebody who's out of the ordinary, and maybe all of that is true. But one thing I know for sure is that you will not see Dylan palling around with Barack Obama or any other president, or any other politician or anybody else. You're just not gonna see that. Uh, this guy has more integrity than that, and he keeps himself aloof from from things like politics. Of course, some of his work, especially the early stuff, seemed to reflect on political issues of the day, but never in a like a one-to-one sort of, or rarely in a like a topical sort of way. He seems much more interested in the transcendent than in the topical. So this is all part of what made me form this appreciation for Bob Dylan. And in fact, I saw him in concert a couple of years ago here in Savannah, and it was fascinating to see him live. And I thought that he was going to do some encores, and do. He had a new album. Of course, he's 80. He's 83 now. He was, like, I guess, 81 then. So I thought he would, sprinkle in some of his greatest hits or something like that, but he didn't. It was just about all this new stuff, which I didn't know at all. Um, he just performed it with his band, and he was behind a piano. He wasn't out in front. He didn't have his guitar and his harmonica strapped around his neck, like, in his iconic days. Uh, but it was still fascinating to see him live. And he again, he didn't seem like somebody who was interested in doing what was expected of him. He was just going to do what what he how whatever he felt guided to do, whatever was suggested to him by his muses to do, and so and it was a fair. There were a fair number of people there, but it wasn't a huge crowd. And you'd think that an icon like him could potentially draw, thousands and thousands of people, and put on these huge concerts where there's all this kind of spectacle and stuff. Not that there's necessarily anything bad about that, but it's just not his thing. So, so that's my preamble. Now, uh, in 2008, a movie was released directed by Todd Haynes called "I'm Not Here," and that was a very different kind of Bob Dylan biopic in that it was really uh, very much off the beaten path as far as uh, the way that the story was presented, as far as just lots just let me just describe it. It's there's I think there's 7 or 8 actors who all play Bob Dylan at some different stage of his life, but none of them have the name Bob Dylan. They all have different names, and uh, and yeah, and one of them, when he's a young man, when he's at his youngest, when he's a hobo riding trains throughout the country, and strumming his guitar, uh, and just doing the hobo thing. In that segment, he's played by a little black boy, like a 10-year-old black boy. And in other segments, other parts of his life, he's played by well-known actors like the late Heath Ledger, um, and Richard Gere, and the American Psycho himself, but and some others. But the most interesting section of that movie is the part where we see Dylan featured during maybe the height of his early fame in the mid '60s, just after he's made this choice to go electric, and he's at this segment at this part of his life, he's you know being asked these pointed questions by the media, and he's sort of answering cryptically and kind of in a kind of smart ass kind of way. And there's a certain swagger and arrogance about him, but also a kind of vulnerability about him at the same time. Uh, and in this segment of uh, I'm not there. Uh, this movie from 2008. Um, the Dylan character is played by Kate Blanchett, and she does a remarkable job uh, as as Bob Dylan, or whatever he's called in this part of the story. Um, and and I don't usually like the gender bending stuff. I don't go for that at all. In this case, it works because the whole point of the movie, I think, is to say that Dylan, was a kind of chameleon. That he's a lot of different things to a lot of different people. He's an enigma. He's really hard to pin down. So it kind of makes sense that he would be a little black boy in one segment, and that he would be played by a woman in another segment. Um, and uh, again, I recommend that movie. I recommend especially that section of the movie featuring Kate Blanchett. I thought she was perfect. It's never that she's particularly convincing. You can see that she's not a man, but she throws herself totally into the part, and um, pulls it off. Now, getting finally to the uh, the new movie, the Bob Dylan biopic, the much more conventional Bob Dylan biopic, directed by James Mangold, A Complete Unknown, starring Maudib himself, Timothy Chalamet. Uh, and what were my thoughts of this movie? I liked this movie. Now, I've talked about biopics before and how the standard biopic is almost inherently mediocre. Uh, because, and that doesn't include something like the Todd Haynes movie, because that's something that's just kind of really avant-garde and out there. Um, but most biopics, they show us somebody who became famous or became infamous, and usually there's a similar arc. They're a relative nobody, and then they get their big break, and then ride a wave to success, and then it all comes fast and furious at them, and then they succumb to some kind of temptation, and start living a life of excess, and that creates their downfall, and then either they get redeemed or they don't, or they die, tragically, and so forth. We all know that whole trajectory. We know that arc. That's the standard biopic. Um, Now, this movie is not really like that, because, which isn't to say it's not standard in a lot of ways. It's certainly much more conventional than Todd Haynes' movie from 2008. But what we see is 5 years in Bob Dylan's life. We go from the time when he was the complete unknown, the titular complete unknown, uh, which is also, of course, a line from one of his songs, one of his more famous songs, and uh, and we see his uh, rise to stardom, and what concerns the movie, or the primary conflict that drives the drama of the movie, isn't so much about the allure of fame or the temptations of fame, um, and that kind of thing. Although that's all there, we, uh, but it's mostly about the notion of whether to conform to some idea of what music, quote unquote, ought to be, or whether to dare to uh, go beyond those that sort of conformist notion of things, even if it means alienating and perhaps, in a sense, betraying the people who helped make you famous, or get helped to get your music out there in the first place. And it's an interesting question, because it's not totally cut and dried. uh the movie present and this is the most interesting thing about the movie. I think it presents both sides of the question. But before I get to that, let me just talk a little bit about some of the performances. I think that Timothy Chalamet is fantastic as Dylan. Now, I was skeptical when I heard, like probably a lot of people were, um, because Timothy Chalamet is very pretty. He's a very pretty guy, and Dylan was anything but pretty. Um, but in other ways, he kind of has the hair, and he kind of has he's a sort of slight guy, like a little wisp of a guy, which is what Dylan was. Still is. I mean, he's still alive, he's still with us. But so other than being having a prettier face, uh, there's not that much that's distracting about Timothy Chalamet playing Bob Dylan. He and again, like Kate Blanchett before him, he's able to pretty much disappear into this role, and but it's not just a one note performance. It's not just like a Saturday Night Live impersonation uh, of Dylan, which is easy enough to do because of his distinctive voice and and all of that. But it seems pretty studied. It seems like something that you know he probably spent a lot of time on. And what they're telling us right now is that his the vocals that we hear in the movie are actually him singing, and that's actually him playing the guitar and the harmonica as well. And if that's all true, which I mean, I guess it's true, but I just don't know. I have a hard time believing that. I don't think that has to be true in order for the performance to be good. But if that's true, then that's also very impressive, of course. Um, so there's lots of so Chalamet is very good in the role. Lots of other characters show up um, and are and all of them are good. The actress who plays Joan Baez is very good. The what's it? One of the Fanning girls it plays like a sort of a waifish girlfriend of young Bob Dylan that he has like a tumultuous on again, off again relationship with. Um, she's also very good, but I would say that a standout in the movie is Edward Norton as Pete Seeger. Now, y'all know, if you know me, that I'm a big fan of Fight Club. That's one of my favorite movies, and so when I see Edward Norton on the screen, that's what I will always think of. I will always remember him in Fight Club. Here, we see him, well, in some ways, play a very different kind of person, but in some ways not, because in Fight Club, the narrator started off as this sort of nice guy, this guy who was just a drone, just working this office job, and doing what was expected of him, and so forth. And you know, basically, he was being a nice, quote unquote, nice guy, but that he got tired of being nice, and that was what led to uh, led to the formation of Tyler Durden eventually, and everything that followed. But in this movie, and I don't know anything about the historical Pete Seeger. I just know the name. Um, but he plays him as this really nice, good-hearted, earnest, like uh, truly wanting people to get along, wanting to do good in the world, kind of person, and somebody who recognizes Dylan as a talent and uh, is a big believer in folk music. The folk scene is a burgeoning scene at the time, and it's seen by people like Pete Seeger and others as as you know as a breed apart from music in general, from popular music, from rock and roll and country and rhythm and blues and other kinds of music like that. He Pete Seeger and his sort of ilk view folk music as more pure, and a way to, and the simplicity of it is what makes it so wonderful, and that just one man, and a few chords just singing about the truth of the world, and can make the world a better place. Uh, can aid in justice and truth prevailing in a world that is largely unjust and full of lies. And so it's a very idealistic, but also somewhat closed-minded perspective of of music, because it basically says if you're not this particular type of musician, then you don't really matter. Then you're just a sellout. You're just a teeny bopper. You just somebody for the, like, selling this product to the masses. Uh, but folk music is seen by him and others like him as something better. And so he recognizes the immense talent that Bob Dylan brings to this scene, and brings him in and helps him develop a following. But it all leads, uh, as Dylan, becomes a part of this scene, he realizes more and more that he wants to, not just be uh, uh, restricted, or not just conform himself to the scene, to the folk music scene. He wants to branch out, and for him, it's going electric. The idea of playing in a full band and having an electric guitar and a bass and that kind of stuff. This is anathema to the folky types. They want everything acoustic and soft and nice and intimate. And Dylan, uh, he's good at that sort of music, but he wants to go electric. That's where he's being pulled. That's the direction that's the artistic direction that he's going in. And the big climactic moment is the Newport Folk Festival, Newport, Rhode Island, in 1965, after Dylan has already uh, recorded an album, I think, that with electric music, but he still, has been doing lots of like duets with Joan Baez, and he still does his acoustic stuff, his folky stuff. Um, and it's just sort of expected that if you go to this folk music festival, which at the time was the biggest, folk music festival, or one of the biggest in the nation, maybe the world. I don't know, but it seemed like it was a big deal. Maybe it's still going on. I don't even know. I have no clue. Uh, but just before the show, he wants to go electric in this show, but Pete Seeger makes this impassioned appeal. This this uh, it's very funny, because he comes on talking in metaphors and stuff, instead of just making his case directly. Just saying, look, can you do this for me? Can you do this for us? We helped you out. You can still have your own music and do what you want, but for this particular show, can you just keep it acoustic? Um, but he he instead tells this really corny sort of metaphor that's hilarious. I was laughing out loud at this moment in the movie. Um, and I don't know what's true to life and what isn't. But in a sense, it doesn't matter, because this movie is meant to represent things. It's not meant to necessarily exactly duplicate uh, things. But so we have this dilemma, if you will, in the end. What is Dylan going to do? Is he going to just be a good friend and acknowledge the ones who brought him, and just do do the respectful thing and take this request into consideration, even though he doesn't really believe in this kind of music anymore, even though he's branched out, um, and he sees it as a dead end. He's not interested in it anymore. Like, would it kill you, kid, to just do it one more time, just as a sign of respect again to people like Pete Seeger and the others who helped make him famous. And we all in history knows, the decision that he ultimately made at that show. Um, a very famous moment in music history. And what I've always found fascinating about Dylan when he goes electric is that so many people were so offended by it and affronted by it, and he got booed, and people he would go on tour and sell out venues, but half of the crowd would be there just to boo him and throw things at him and his band, uh, just because they hated the electric stuff and they thought he was a Judas. They thought he had sold them out. He thought he was a traitor to their cause, and it seems so over the top. It seems so self righteous and all of that. But on the other hand, these people were impassioned and their emotions were real. And I just think I here's something I will make an admission about. Um, while I was watching the movie and watched the final scene as it played itself out. I'm not going to go into detail about that. It's not the final scene, but it's the climactic scene. The Dylan's gig, his part of the Newport 1965 show. Uh, I actually thought to myself, this is such a punk rock thing to do. This is punk rock 10 years before punk rock even existed. And I go home, uh, and I look up the actual concert and read some of the comments, and of course, like comments from 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, saying, "This is punk rock. This is so punk rock." And I realized that was not an original thought, even though I didn't get it from anybody. I wasn't copying anybody when I thought it, but it's just a lot of people have that same thought has occurred to a lot of different people. Um, and so it's true. I think there is a prefiguring of what punk rock was at its best, where it's just all about refusing to bow down and just being whatever you're going to be, wherever your muse takes you, whatever people think of it, and if they don't like it, then screw them. That's the punk rock attitude. Um, and so I think that's part of what's so appealing about Dylan is that he refuses, and I sort of alluded to this earlier in contrasting him with Springsteen, is he refused to it seemed like throughout his life, he refused to do what was expected of him, um, and always just kind of effortlessly, kind of without uh, you know without it being like a contrived thing, without it being I'll show him kind of thing. It's just he's going to do what he feels like he ought to do, and he bows to no one, and you know uh, shows fealty to no one, and his music is just sort of spitting this kind of defiance, and songs like how does it feel, or whatever that song is called, uh, Is it like a Rolling Stone? Um, I'm not, uh, I don't know all the titles, but uh, yeah. So there's this kind of there is a kind of energy to a lot of his music that could be almost called quote unquote punk rock, even if that's a corny way of putting it. Whatever the spirit was that animated punk rock, at its best, which is something I've always appreciated, is the same thing that I think you see communicated in Dylan, even though Dylan was a very multifaceted kind of uh, you know he wasn't just three chords, kind of simple lyrics, kind of deal. It's like this is poetry. This is like T.S. Eliot. This is like Shakespeare. This is stuff that's that's not just this is not the Ramones. This is something with several with like 18 different levels of meaning and or what have you. Um, but but still, I think throughout all that there's this spirit um, of defiance that's very appealing. So I think the movie communicates this part of his life and the decision that he makes, to do what he does at the Newport Folk Festival, and outrage the crowd and make them all hate him. And I mean, not all of them. Some people liked it. Some people were intrigued. Some people appreciated his bravado and his spirit of defiance and his guts. But a lot of them just hated it. It was too loud, and it was vulgar, and it was just not what they were about. Um, but he wasn't going to work on Maggie's farm no more. That was it. And I think that's what makes the movie interesting, is how it all uh, kind of leads up to that moment. And the bigger question is, do you conform ultimately, or do you choose not to conform, even with the the consequences of not conforming? You know, and non servum, right? I mean, you could take it in that direction. I'm not going to take it in that direction because I don't think Dylan's a satanic figure, but there's there are different ways of interpreting that as well. So that's my long and involved and uh, needlessly detailed and needlessly lengthy review of A Complete Unknown. I do recommend it. I think you will enjoy it. And that's that. Thanks for watching.